September 15th, 1882, Felcroft, Scotland. The fall air outside the Sallow estates was chilly, and still, moments ago, it was filled with the encouraging screams of a woman bringing in not one, but two little souls into existence. Anita Sallow, a Muggle studies professor at Hogwarts, had just welcomed her younger son into the warm, heated room. A fire roared lively in the fireplace as she lay half-dressed in her nightclothes, panting in exhaustion. With sweat glistening on her brow, and even lying on a half-blood soak bed, her expression was blissful as the midwives took special care attending to her and the two petite babes on her chest. "You did well, just splendid, Mrs. My words, they are just beautiful," the midwife gushed. Next to Anita, the father and her husband, Cyrus Sallow, smiled, stroking his son's small, furrowed brow as he nuzzled into his mother for comfort. "Indeed they are. Just two perfect miracles. Well done, love," he whispered, kissing his wife's forehead. She smiled back through her weariness. "Anne and Sebastian." She cooed softly to the sleeping infants, a boy and a girl, "who thought we are so lucky to have one of each." She whispered her words hoarsely into the dim room, entranced by the wrinkly, squirming things. She then kissed the downy, soft, dark hair atop her daughter's head. "Have you sent word to your brother yet?" She sighed, trying not to put a damper on the mood, but it needed to be asked. Cyrus's expression hardened before his soft, dark eyes turned to his wife. "I'm holding off till morning. The whole thing has been hard for him after, well, you know, losing Piper," Cyrus said sadly. Anita nodded. "I know, I didn't mean to," she started, but Cyrus hushed his wife, kissing her again. "No need to fuss about that now. Let's just enjoy our little family for now." She smiled earnestly. "Sebastian and Anne Sallow, you will be destined for great things." "I know it," he whispered. And thus the two professors, now parents, stared lovingly at the two lives they had just created, the world outside of them fading like a dream. December 2nd, 1882, Seattle, Washington. Sandra lay in the bed, her voice feeling like shattered glass and far off in the room, as Dr. Cromshaw ordered her to push again. She shook her head with more strength than she'd thought she still possessed at that moment. "Again, Mrs. Choate," the gruff healer ordered. With a hoarse cry, the young woman curled forward, bearing down again and again. Finally, after 3 days of on-and-off labour and over 3.5 hours of pushing, a small, crimson-soaked head emerged from the young woman. She let loose a broken cry as the midwives and Dr. Cromshaw pulled the young infant from her. The room was silent, and all held their breath as the infant was quiet. "Is the baby?" Sandra whispered through her pained delirium. It was yet another moment before the infant did not cry, but blinked its round eyes at the healer. Then finally a small cry hissed from the baby girl's throat. The room let out a collective sigh. Sandra sobbed in relief. Lynette Rose had just been born at a little over 35.5 weeks. She weighed a mere 5 pounds 2 ounces. Dr. Cromshaw hadn't even expected the infant to be breathing, let alone such a weight for a premature birth. Now, Davison and Sandra, two of the wealthiest wizards in all of North America, had a living, breathing heiress when all had seemed to point otherwise. From the years it took them to conceive her to the health problems that Sandra had faced, and even the long, grueling labour that had taken not hours but days, they now held the will of their love within their grip. "She is so small," Davison whispered. Sandra nodded, too weak to do much else as she fed the tiny thing from her breast. The premature infant even ate well, a miracle by every known standard. Davison finally allowed a rare smile to grace his features as the tiny baby girl wrapped her doll-like fist around his finger. Despite everything, she was now here, Lynette Rose, heir to his legacy and the future he hoped to create.